This is Calvary Baltimore's Harford County Bible Study with our senior pastor, Josh Plantholt. Here's Pastor Josh.
All right. An excellent wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. She's more expensive than jewels. That's great. Well, if she's someone to find, that means she's someone to find, which means she's someone to pray for. And I think there's a long precedent of young men. Like, I pray with my boys, to find good wives, because you're finding them. You don't, I'm not arranging it, so, we need to be, and young women need to be praying for godly husbands. Verse 11, the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She raises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hand, she plants a vineyard. Really cool. There's such an emphasis on Proverbs 31 about this woman's hands. There's something about the hands of a godly woman, of a godly man. And in fact, 7 times in Proverbs 31, it describes this woman's hands. 7 times. I have a friend, I said, what does Proverbs 31 mean to you? And she said, well, first, she honors her husband. And secondly, she's always busy. And when you read Proverbs 31, that woman does not sit. But really interesting, the word for sluggard in the Hebrew is used 14 times in the book of Proverbs. 14 times a man is instructed not to be a lazy bum. And 7 times in the book of Proverbs 31, the woman is specifically instructed to be busy with her hands. And so there's this double call for men to lead in service and to be active. But 7 times this woman's hand is specifically pointed out that God's people are to be busy. Now, why I think that's important, and we don't want to mistake that busy work is not necessarily good work. We all know people that do busy work. When I worked at the church, there would be people that would come in and create work that was completely unnecessary to do. We used to do the women's teas at the church. And I sat there for 12-hour days for 4 days or 3 days and helped people load. It was like crazy how much work there was to do. And maybe it was worth it, maybe it wasn't, but it's easy to chalk up your time with work that's not necessarily important. But why I think this is interesting, 14 times men are to be busy, 7 times the woman's hands referenced in working, is that God seems to delight and call busy people. You see, when God comes to Moses, he's busy working, finding his father-in-law's sheep. Abraham, you go, but he was resting in the cool of the day. Well, he was resting because he was so exhausted from work. Saul was looking for his donkeys. David was out shepherding. Might I add, David really got in trouble, not when he was on the battlefield, but when he wasn't working. Elisha was plowing a field. Andrew, Peter, James, and John were all fishing when Jesus called them. Matthew was in the tax booth. Saul was on his way to get a promotion before he was called Paul. God seems to delight when people are hard at work. And what's the model for us? God made humanity in our Edenic state. For every 1 day of rest, 6 days of work. We're to work 6 times more than we rest. And so God does not want his people idle. And why doesn't God want his people idle? Because he's not idle. God does not sit on his hands and do nothing. And also a cool textual note here. There's 2 words for hand used in Proverbs 31. I ran through that this morning on the Bible study. There's the general word yad, which is describing the hand as a whole, but it also talks about the palm. And here it's talking about the fruit of her palms. And I find that really, really precious. I think that's really cool. Verse 17. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. I always think of, remember those old World War II posters with the girl with the bonnet and she's got the bicep? She makes her arms strong. Again, even though, and here's what's really cool. She has maidens. In the 9th century, this is probably slaves. And yet she still works. So here's someone who doesn't have to work hard, but chooses to work hard because it honors the Lord. Great. Verse 18. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. So there's an old Middle Eastern proverb that says he sleeps in the dark, which is a way of saying they're poor. They don't have a penny to spare. Here, this woman, she has enough money to allow her oil lamp to burn through the night. You ever leave a little light on in your house in case you got to get up and pee or you hear a bump in the night, Well, in the Middle East, they felt the same way. They wanted a little light so they can navigate if they woke up in the middle of the night. And here it says her lamp never runs dry. So she has just enough excess to keep the lights running during the night. And which means what? Do you have to do that? No. So she has excess. And it's not wrong that she uses it. So she has sleeping oil money, which is great, which is not essential, but it is a convenience. So really funny. About 20 years ago, the church was having a men's event at night. And there were these 3 guys, they ran a business together, and one of them called my dad up and said, hey, we really want to get involved, we want to help. My dad said, great. They go, yeah, we're coming tonight, what can we do? My dad says, why don't you pick up some cake or some desserts for the guys, they'll really love that. Sure, no problem. I was with my dad, he got a call about 3 hours later, and he goes, me and the guys have been talking. And he goes, we really think that money would be better served given to the poor. So we're going to do that instead. And my dad just goes, just forget it. I'll get the cake. To those people, I submit Proverbs 31:18. Her lamp does not go out at night. To modernize this, they bought cake, though they didn't need it. They let the air conditioning run while they slept. They upgraded the family vehicle. These are things you don't need, but these are conveniences, which this woman works hard for. That's okay. It's okay that and we can flog ourselves, can't we? Can't we be like, oh God, I'm being wasteful or I'm doing too much? It's like, no, it's okay. If God has provided the access, it's okay to enjoy it. You don't need to flog yourself over these things. And here this model of virtue is enjoying the wealth that God has provided her. Verse 19. She puts her hand to the distaff. It's like a way to weave things, and her hand to hold the spindle. So I'll just go through it again. She puts her hands, that means whole hands, to the distaff, and her hands, her palms, it says in Hebrew, she holds the spindle. She opens her hands, that means whole hand, to the poor. So the same hand that holds the weaves is the same hand that she uses to help the poor, and reaches out her palms to the needy. So the same hand that holds the weaving thing is the same hand that's generous to the poor. So there's this picture of this woman's hands being used to bless her family and to bless the poor. And it's her whole hand, not her fingers. It's the palm and the whole thing. She's not afraid of snow for her household, and for all her household are clothed in scarlet. I'm never going to be able to read that again without thinking of you. That word scarlet there means costly wool. And so not only are her husband and her kids ready for winter, but have you ever seen someone do a Christmas card and everyone just looks beautiful? Like the family gets put together and you think, I could never in a million years make my family look that put together. They're all in the nice outfits. They're matching. This is describing in a way. She buys her kids brand new North Face winter jackets. She buys good stuff. Nice. This is expensive clothing, is what this is saying. Again, can buying clothes be inappropriate? Of course it can. It can be lavish, exorbitant, excessive. It can be incredibly flashy and selfish. And in our culture, that's easy to do. But at the same time, if God has provided extra, it's okay to take care of the people in your life. You don't need to feel bad about these things. So Christian families don't have to dress in rags, so to speak, because we're being pious. No. No.
This part where you said she extends her hand.
Yeah.
That means that she is generous to the poor.
Yeah. So the same hand that she spins the distaff, which is, it weaves thread into a singular rope, and the same hand that she holds the spindle, so that the hand is what does the distaff, and the palm is what holds, and then the hands for the poor, and then the palms for the poor. But the same hand that serves her family is the same hand that helps the poverty around her. Isn't that cool? I know. And again, there's just something about the hands of a godly person, you know? Like I was like with my mom yesterday, and with her hand, it's like this precious hand of my mother, a godly woman's hands, just something about it. And again, when you propose to someone, there's a reason it's not a toe ring. It goes on the hand. Verse 22, she makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. So really interesting. This is the only mention of the valiant wife looking after herself. Isn't that interesting? She makes herself beautiful, and she prepares her bed, it says, for herself. I find that really interesting. She wants to look pretty, and she wants to sleep. But if we look at the context of this, especially as we look at the next verse, she also wants to look pretty, and she also wants to make her bed, not just for her, it seems, but also for her husband. These things are also for the joy of her husband. She shares with him her beauty and her bed. And this really hit me, that the Proverbs 31 woman has a specific note that she takes care of herself. Because I don't know about you. I am the kind of person that will go, put myself last, and then end in a fiery car crash. And I will be sick and burnt out and wiped out. And here this woman, she has enough wisdom to go, hey, yeah, I'm feeling stressed. Maybe I need a little time. It's that Susanna Wesley. Remember, she put that blanket over her head. It's like, mama needs a prayer time, kids. There's times to take care of yourself. Even physical fitness. Like I used to never go to the gym because who's got time to do such a thing? But it's like, I'm going to get sick and die. And then I'm going to be a real burden on the people I'm trying to take care of, So there's these things that she understands. She also can take care of herself, which
she makes the time.
She makes the time. That's right.
She makes the time. That's what it's about.
This is just incredibly practical wisdom here. Verse 23, her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. So this actually is the focal point, the center, the climax of Psalm 31. Proverbs 12:4 says, an excellent wife is the crown of her husband. And here we see this theme echoed, that everything she does is elevating her husband to the place of ruling, of being crowned, that her honorable work puts him in a position to receive honor. Which of course should be a picture of the church, should it not? Everything we doing should make our husband look good. And at least we should be working to that end. Verse 24, she makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes. Linen garments there might mean underwear, by the way, just as a fun little note. It might not, but she sells underwear possibly. And sells them. She delivers sashes, belts to the merchants. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. Who does that remind us of? Who does that remind us of? She laughs at the time to come. Psalm 2. God. As all these troubles are rising up, the schemes of man are coming, God sits in heaven and laughs. This is a godly woman. She knows God's on the throne. I don't need to worry. It's okay. And there's a saying I heard from Charles Swindoll. I probably read it 15 years ago. I think from a book you gave me, the Treasury of David. He had not the Treasury of David, but he had a book on David you let me borrow. Okay. And in that book he says, faith and good planning go hand in hand. And I love that passage. And here this woman, she bought her family coats for the winter. She's preparing for winter, but she also has faith that even if the winter's unmanageable, God's in charge, and she laughs at it. Because sometimes don't you see people that over-prepare and don't have faith? And then you go the other end, and you people that only have faith and they don't plan anything. It's like, no. It's not God's job to bail you out, of all of your negligence. So we're seeing both here. Also, she's clothed like a warrior. That word for dignity is the same word for glory. She's clothed in glory. Verse 26, she opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. Isn't that cool? Yes. The first thing on her tongue is kindness. Kindness.
No, I'm working on it.
Aren't we all, though? It's really easy to look at every problem like a nail that needs to be hammered, especially when your hair's on fire. But here this woman is swamped. I mean, she's got a jam-packed day, and kindness is on her tongue. I think this is why, there's so much. She seems to be, so all through the book of Proverbs, I wasn't going to do this, but here we go. All through the book of Proverbs, there's two women. The Proverbs could almost be summed up in a tale of two women. And there's the woman of chaos, the foreign woman, always sowing problems. Her way is the way to death. And then there's the godly woman. Her name is wisdom. And she's calling people into her home. She's a 7 pillars. She invites people. She's hospitable. She's kind. It talks about her mouth. The wisdom's coming from her, right? And what a picture for the bride. This woman is wisdom that is spoken about all through. It seems that we're given glimpses of this Proverbs 31 woman throughout the book. And here we get to the last chapter, and here she is. And her eyes are described. Her tongue is described. Her hands are described. And she's this beautiful, beautiful woman. And I love that this kindness is on her tongue. I really think we have a lot. I don't have anything profound to say there. I just find it fascinating. Verse 27, she looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Again, she's not lazy. Her mouth, her tongue, her eyes, her hands work for the good of her family. Also, how did Proverbs 31 begin? A lot of people like to take the first 9 verses and separate them from the last 21. But the reality, all of Proverbs 31 belong together. And how did Proverbs 31 begin? With the king. With the king. And the wise older mother warned her to not be idle when there was a job to do. And here this woman, like the king, is given the same thing. But what we're seeing in both the male example and the female example, when God has provided all this stuff, and when you're hardworking, and when you're capable, and when you can buy the nice clothes, and you got the oil money, and you got the this and the that, there comes a great temptation with prosperity. And both the man and the woman are given almost the same warning. Be careful when you don't have to get up and hustle, that you don't stop hustling. Stay at it. Keep working. Be vigilant, which is what's being described here. Verse 28. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Again, that word there is sons. Future leaders rise up and call her blessed. her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. All right. This structurally is very similar to something we've heard before. And it's a song. Saul has killed his thousands, but David his tens of thousands. What did he just say? Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. I want to read you a passage out of 1 Samuel 16:14. Now the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a harmful spirit from the Lord tormented him. And Saul's servant said to him, Behold, now a harmful spirit from God is tormenting you. Let our Lord now command your servant who are before you to seek out a man who is skillful in playing the lyre. And when the harmful spirit from God is upon you, he will play it, and you will be well. So Saul said to his servant, Provide for me a man who can play well and bring him to me. Now listen to this, verse 18. 1 Samuel 16:18. One of the young men answered, Behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite who is skillful in playing a man of valor. Same exact description as Proverbs 31:10 of the woman of valor. Same description.
Okay.
He's a man of, what says of David, he's a man of war. How is the Proverbs 31 woman spoken of? In war imagery. Prudent in speech is the woman's speech, Proverbs 31 spoken of course. And a man of good presence, is this woman of good presence? Yes, it is. It's already been described. And the Lord is with them. Well, obviously that's implied. They are described in very similar language. David is introduced to the king as a man of valor, and here the Proverbs 31 woman is introduced to the king as a woman of valor. David is described as a man of fearlessness, as the Proverbs 31 woman is. David's introduced as someone who works with his hands on the harp. The Proverbs 31 woman worked with her hands on the spindle. David's introduced as a good-looking man. This is a woman with beautiful linens on. And so what I'm proposing is that there's no coincidence that this woman and David are introduced with the same descriptions. I believe the Proverbs 31 woman, or Proverbs 31, was written in a way to describe a female David. That's who I think the Proverbs 31 woman is, a female David. To describe a woman after God's own heart. A warrior woman, beautiful, clothed in strength, of good reputation, a woman who laughs at the challenges to come. Again, a female David. Now, I want to talk about strong females in literature and film. Today's media, if you've ever watched any news shows or movies, often females are the leads. That's almost every movie now. And when they have a female lead, they almost always make them masculine. They're getting in bar fights and holding their own. They're emotionally unengaged. They're not nurturing at all. And you can't get to them, right? They're one of the boys. The new kids shows, I have kids, and the new female leads are almost always tomboys. There's Moana, there's the woman from Brave, the new Spider-Man woman's this tomboy with this nose ring and hair. But what I absolutely love about the Proverbs 31 woman is that she's portrayed as a warrior, but not like a man.
Right.
You know, Hollywood when it seeks to make a female hero, they make him masculine. They make him, but God doesn't do that. He has a female hero as a female. When the Holy Spirit gives us the description of a valiant woman hero, he preserves her femininity. He has preserved how he has made her uniquely different than men. Men and women are different. Surprise, surprise. And not just outwardly, also inwardly. We are designed differently. She's a hero. She's a warrior. She's valiant. She fights. She sails. She hunts. But she's still a family woman. She's still focused on her kids. She cares how the bed linens look. She cares about clothes. She wants to be pretty. She can't wait to dress her kids. Not at your house, apparently. Believe me, Maureen's the best thing that ever happened to him. And yet, she's described, he knows it. And Jan's causing problems. And yet she is described and celebrated as a warrior, a woman of valor. She's strong and capable. She is fearless in the face of danger. She laughs at the trials ahead, making her very much like a woman after God's own heart. Again, Psalm 2. God sits in heaven and laughs. She looks at the storm coming and laughs because she knows who God is. And like David, like we saw, Saul has killed his thousands, David has tens of thousands. The community praises her. Every day she wakes up and kills a new giant, which is her schedule, and the whole town erupts into praise. Her children sing of her. Her husband sings of her. He adores her. And again, thinking again of our culture, not only can it not define what a woman is, not only can it not define what a man is, but at the same time, it's so busy trying to turn women into men, which is fascinating to me. You don't even know what a man is. You don't even know what a woman is. But it's turning all godly femininity into toxic masculinity. Don't serve your husband. Don't stay home with the kids. You find worth in a 9-to-5 job. Who cares, right? Go get a degree, whatever. Go leave the home. Don't waste your life being a mom.
I went to see a movie the other night.
Okay.
Unsung Hero.
Oh, yeah.
How was it?
Excellent.
The woman is the hero.
Okay, and she's a woman.
She's gentle and loving,
Yeah.
and spiritual as you could ever want. King and Country, that's her kids. And who's the daughter? That's Rebecca. St. James is her daughter. She's got a whole clan. And the husband, he's falling apart. And she steps right in there and she's leading the whole. She's a strength, spiritual strength.
Wow.
Like the Wesley mom.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
And she was the unsung hero. In the movie.
Wow. Yeah,
It's the opposite of what.
Yeah, just, seeing what's out there. It's crazy to me.
Well, now are Christian movies coming out because they know they got it.
Of course, well, and they make money, so people are going, oh, okay, this works. I was watching a YouTube thing the other day, and it was on Australia. The men were fighting that women shouldn't be allowed into bars with men. They wanted segregated bars. No men and women. And they went into the bars and asked the men, why don't you want women that can go to the bars? He goes, because we don't want to curse in front of them.
This is the movie that's about their Australian.
Okay, so, there was a time in our country where you wouldn't curse in front of a woman because it was disgraceful. And now the women curse like sailors. Just like toxic men.
Yeah.
And so one of my points is that God has made men and women differently, and that's a good thing. We have to remember when Adam was lonely in the garden, he didn't make a second Adam. It's not Adam and Steve. There's a reason for that. He made a man and a woman. And he made them differently. And both of them had different roles. And they had different functions and different inclinations. And this is one of the reasons I love Proverbs 31. Because she's David in so many ways, but she's a female David. She's still feminine. She's a strong woman leaning into the design of our Creator as a mother and a wife. And God has beautifully made women as nurturers, caretakers, and homemakers, and this passage is filled with it. And so women are beautifiers and fruit bearers, and this passage again is filled with it. Proverbs 31 describes a woman, and not a man, a woman after God's own heart, which I think is so cool. And drives me nuts that people don't spend more time in Proverbs 31. Let's keep going. Verse 30. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Now, the husband's quoted and he offers up his praise. My dad sent me this quote. Praise is not merely an expression of joy, but the consummation of it. I like that. Praise is not merely an expression of joy, but the consummation of it. This is a woman who fills her family with joy. I just love that. But isn't that so much like the heroes of the early New Testament? When you look at Mary, the Magnificat, she's singing. When you look at the angels, they're singing. When you look at Elizabeth, she sees Mary, she's singing. You get to Zechariah, he starts singing. I find it fascinating that the two greatest men possibly to ever live, Jesus and John the Baptist, both come from homes where their mothers were full of worship. I don't find that a coincidence. And here this woman is a woman after God's own heart, and her whole family's erupting into praise. And so her hard work doesn't create a culture of misery, but a house that praises her. And I will say, if she sat on her butt all day and scrolled through Instagram and did a little self-care, her family's not praising her at the end of this day.
No.
And you know what's also fascinating? She'd be miserable. You know, the path to joy is not selfishness.
No.
You know, it's service. It's praising your loved ones, because in turn they'll end up being joyful and praising you. And so everyone here is deferring honor to one another. Verse 31, give her of the fruit of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. The Proverbs 31 woman, introduced in verse 10, was first introduced as someone who earned the trust of her husband in verse 11. And so the Proverbs, oh wait, here we go. My notes are all messed up. Of course it is. Oh, okay, here we go. Proverbs 31 began with her earning the trust of her husband and ends with her receiving the praise of her husband. I love that it both begins and ends with the pleasure the husband has in her, and the center point's that her husband sits in the city gate. And I find that really, really interesting. But two thoughts. First, as wonderful as Proverbs 31 is, this woman is still a woman. This Proverbs 31 is not a bat to beat people if they don't meet some golden standard, which the Bible is easily used to do. So we want to be careful to not, use this as an impossible measuring stick with which to measure people. But one of the things that I love is she's still human. And I love that at the end of the story, the whole city praises her. All the elders praise her. And I find that really interesting, because the elders at the city gate do not end up praising her if her husband badmouths her to his friends when she makes a mistake. Haven't we all been in the spot where someone gets around you and they start the complaint session about their spouse? And it goes on and on and on, and then everyone starts hopping in on why they're married to a ball and chain or a miserable wretch or a lazy do-nothing. But it seems to me it's not that this woman never makes a mistake, it's that the husband doesn't amplify him. Mm-hmm. And so he's invested in her honor as well. Mm-hmm. If he's sitting there in judgment and nitpicking her, they don't praise her. But they do. So you can see they both mutually are working for the respect of one another. And I find that really, really cool. And I know I've shared this before, but this whole passage to me just screams Trinitarian. You hear a lot of times, like, how do you define God? And a lot of people like to go to, 1 John, God is love. But when you really look at God in a triune aspect, it's almost like they're more generous than anything. Because you look at the Father, and the Father says, look at my Son.
Right.
And then you look at the Son, and he goes, oh, you got to look at my Dad. Then you look at the Dad, and he goes, oh, but did you see my Son? And then you look at the Son, and he goes, wait. This guy, the Holy Spirit's coming now. That's something. Then the Spirit comes, did you see Jesus? And then you go to Jesus. Look at my Dad, right? And they're all deferring honor to one another. Right. That is exactly how the family unit should be. We all should be so busy, not nitpicking, not speck finding. We should be deferring honor to one another and building one another up and entering into this dance of, have you met my wife? She's the best. Have you seen my kids? Show them the funny face you make, I love my dad, and you guys are all deferring praise to one another. And I think this is a model for healthy community as we see in our triune God. I really, really like that in this passage. Secondly, as we run this through the New Testament, the church is the bride of the King. We are the bride of Christ. And how does Proverbs 31 end? It ends at the city gate. Where does the bride end? Where do we end?
Gates of heaven.
Gates of heaven. Before our judge. The reality is, when all of us are faithful, as Revelations would say, as we endure, as we conquer, So we make it to the end. Our story also ends at a city gate with our husband. And he sits there in great pleasure of us. But I want you to notice, it's not just that our husband sits there by himself. He sits there with his elders. And we're going to come before Jesus Christ our Lord, and he's going to be there with an innumerable amount of angels and 24 elders and cherubim and seraphim. And there they are. And they're all going to say, wow, did you see what Bob did? Did you see what, absolutely delighted in us for our diligence, for our hard work, for our praise. And so Proverbs 31 so naturally fits into a New Testament context. Of course, this is how this passage ends. It ends before our husband, the Lord, in great pleasure of his faithful bride. And I just thought, I was so tickled by that as it ended. Anyways, that's what I got.
You've been listening to Calvary Baltimore's Harford County Bible Study. If you'd like to get in touch or come visit us at Calvary Baltimore, head to calvarychapelbaltimore.org for service times and directions. If you have a prayer request or you just want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is calvarybaltimore1@gmail.com. If you've been blessed by today's teaching and would like to donate to the work that God is doing through Calvary Baltimore, go to our website at calvarychapelbaltimore.org and click Give. Pastor Josh and all of us at Calvary Baltimore consider it a blessing to serve you. We hope you'll join us again for the next edition of the Calvary Baltimore Harford County Bible Study.